Well, welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you as always by Camel Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days, and see for yourself what a difference this mild roasted Turkish tobacco can make for your life. Say what you want about the science, the theology, the anthropology, the thousands of years during which humans smoked tobacco. The only way that you'll ever know what camels can do for you is by taking the Camels Challenge. What do you have to lose? If it's as bad as everyone says it is, you'll know, and you will know that it's not for you. Just do me a favor. If you do take the Camel's Challenge, don't give up just because you end up puking your guts out. Go back and take a little toke and then let your body retch a little bit. And once you've gotten used to the initial nausea, you can begin to appreciate the fine tobacco flavor. What I'm saying is that tobacco smoking is an acquired taste. If you want to enjoy it, you're going to have to learn to tolerate it. I remember 2 a.m. early in an all-nighter, coffee, amphetamines, and a pack of Camels. The pack would be empty by morning, but the mind will be sharp as a pin going into that exam. Then staring at this complex question, which requires finesse of analysis and complete mastery of the materials. It would have been impossible without Camels. They say that tobacco causes cancer. I say tobacco caused my PhD. At any rate, here we are back again after a short break, during which my hip was dislocated, the ball joints sawed off, and a shiny new bionic hip taken the place of the old worn-out one. So for those of you who are wondering, yes, it hurt. My surgeon told me that he was going to intentionally dislocate my hip, swing my leg into an obscenely unnatural position, replace my old hip, put me back together in less than an hour and a half, and send me home on the same day. And that is exactly what he did. So did I mention that it hurts? I mean that the everyday pain that I'm experiencing now is worse than the pain that I was experiencing before the surgery. But this pain is very different. All the movement is painful, but the more I move, the better I get, and the pain will go away. Not anytime soon, mind you. I'm facing months of extreme stiffness and pain from the surgery itself. But uh, but what matters is that I'm on the mend. I'm not going back to limping around on a cane. I'm going back to my bike. I'm going back to sweating. I'm going back to making those muscles scream in pain, and then I'm going to stretch them out and make them scream some more. So I thought I might say a few words this week about pain, and I think that maybe I should share my screen and show you the go-to book on pain. We'll share screen. And here we go. So this is it. It's The Body in Pain by Elaine Scarry. It's The Making and the Unmaking of the World, Oxford University Press, 1985. Absolutely brilliant book. All right. So she writes that physical pain is exceptional in the whole fabric of psychic, somatic, and perceptual states for being the only one that has no object. Though the capacity to experience physical pain is a primal fact, the capacity to hear, to touch, to desire, to fear, to hunger, it differs from all those by not having an object in the external world. Hearing and touch are of objects outside of the boundaries of the body, as desire is desire for X, fear is fear of Y, hunger is hunger for Z, but pain is not of or for anything. It is itself alone. This objectlessness, the complete absence of a referent content, almost prevents it from being rendered in language. It's so hard to talk about pain. But it's objectlessness that may give rise to the process that eventually brings forth, quote, the dense sea of artifacts and symbols that we make and move about in, that create the world that we live in. I've said before, when we see a pack of cigarettes, it's part of a densely woven fabric of reality. Back in the day when I was young, more doctors smoked Camels than any other cigarette. Everyone knew that smoking was good for you. What Elaine Scarry is suggesting is that the origins of our imagining are in the inescapable objectlessness of pain. Quote, all other states, precisely by taking an object, invite one to enter the natural world. The man desiring can see the rain that he wants to stop so that he can go out and find the berries that he's hungry for before the night comes that he fears. Because the inevitable bonding of his own interior states with the companion objects in the outside world, he easily locates himself in the external world and has no need to invent a world to extend himself out into. The rain expresses his longing, the berries his hunger, the night his fear, but nothing expresses his physical pain. Most days before the surgery, I had a reading and study regimen that was disrupted by the surgery. It was impossible to focus enough attention in the days after the surgery to pull together my presentation. It was only yesterday that I actually began to have the presence of mind to focus my thoughts, and naturally, they have been focused on my experience of pain and its place in the formation of my consciousness. My mother told me that my pain really began when I was 3 years old. She had a cold and couldn't smell the baby food that she was feeding me was spoiled. She only realized it after I vomited the whole thing up. It was shortly after that that the doctors diagnosed me as suffering from Bright's disease, an early name for kidney disease. The National Kidney Foundation was not established until 1964. Back in the 1960s, there was no effective treatment for childhood nephrosis. The doctors held out no hope to my parents. When the child's kidneys failed, he would die. Before she died, my mother told me that she always believed that she had caused my kidney problems because she fed me that jar of spoiled food. The doctors repeatedly assured her that my disease had nothing to do with the spoiled baby food. The choice she had was between believing that the universe was randomly cruel or that my suffering was the result of my mother's neglect. You might think that one would prefer exoneration, but actually, it is less terrifying to believe that one suffers because of some personal failing than to believe that the suffering we all experience makes no sense at all. We want to believe that the universe bends towards justice, that the universe is utterly indifferent to our existence is truly terrifying. When people suffer, we tend to believe that the universe is just and their suffering is deserved. Thus, billionaires are blessed because they are deserving, and the rest of us suffer for our sins. So when I say I grew up the dead child walking, what I mean is that my parents were both told that I was going to die, and that message got transmitted to me. I grew up knowing I was doomed, and it was probably my own fault. I was sure I was being punished because I masturbated. Now, before you start judging me, let me tell you that the science of the day believed that masturbation was a sure road to insanity. Here at Ferris, old man Ferris himself, Woodridge Ferris, used to pass around a little pamphlet. Here, I have it here. This is a little pamphlet he used to pass around. It's called A Peep into the Mysteries of Nature. Here's another one that they used to pass around. A warning, are you fit to marry? And let me just read you from this is uh, this was actually passed around on campus. Here we go. And it says, nothing can be more sad or trying than to see life ebbing away slowly but perceptibly where no sufficient cause is manifest. It is as if the angel of death were stealing on his prey without mercy and without warning. So you better watch out because these things will creep up on you. In the early years of eugenic sterilization, sterilization of males was justified as a medical procedure that saved the health of the subject. Everyone knew that masturbation caused insanity, so that for Catholics who opposed eugenic sterilization as a birth control measure, they could support it like amputating a limb to save the body. That was all right. And don't try going to the Talmud for any relief. Talmudic rabbis may have been liberals when it came to abortion and positively modern in their attitudes towards anal sex, which they found to be permissible even for the sanctification of marriage, as long as everybody is with both parties desire it. But when it came to masturbation, the Talmudic rabbis were to the right of the Taliban. And I couldn't help myself. It was the only comfort I could find when I was alone in the dark. Growing up, I had a repetitive nightmare. Waking in the middle of the night in intense pain, I walk down the hall to my parents' bedroom, tap on my mother's shoulder, and when she turns to me, I see a horrible witch. I bolt in terror, running into the dark, and wake up panting with sweat. I had this dream dozens of times right through my early college years. So one day in my early 20s, I'm mildly intoxicated and very relaxed, and the dream came back to me, and I saw my mother, and I saw her turn to me, and I saw that she was terrified. She was afraid I was going to die. And I saw the fear, and it terrified me. As a child, this so traumatized me that it became a recurrent nightmare which vanished once I remembered the origins of the trauma. It was what Freud said: once the source of the trauma is revealed, the trauma itself would dissipate. And that's exactly what happened. I never had the nightmare again. And that is how the angel of death came to be my guardian angel. She protected me against delusions. I knew I was going to die from a very young age, and that darkened my horizons. When everyone else thought things were getting better all the time, I was convinced otherwise. In high school, in the early 60s, when the United States was the most powerful nation that had ever existed and the richest nation on the face of the earth, I was convinced that fascism was on the rise and our civilization was collapsing. It was this insight that drove my early work in eugenics. I argued that racism and fascism were in the ascendancy, not in the decline. Everyone around me thought fascism was dead, that the Nazis were defeated. People couldn't understand my obsession with racism and fascism, or my pessimism. My guardian angel protected me and continues to protect me from the illusion that we have a future. So that's it for this week. Remember to hit that like button, and I'll see you next week.